Is he going to get over with it? A few words about this guy. Come on, are you serious? Look at this guy. This is, I mean, that's why you're here, right? No. So, the sort of life before Google started out in real estate. I was very young. I know, right? And afterwards, I had several years spent in cinematography and marketing, and then to have it said in a very pompous manner, 3/4 of a decade was spent in gaming, which is like about 7.5 years. And then sometimes around 2018, I had the opportunity of joining Fitbit as a product designer. Several years later, it became part of Google. Little did he know at that point. And I'm hashtag blessed to be here. And I have happened to have a design manager role, at least for now. Maybe by the end of this talk, that might change. And I have a beautiful team based in Bucharest. We design wearables, namely trackers. I have been leading the tracker design team for over 3 years now. I'm trying to do the math, but we're going to see why in a minute. And it's beautiful, and I'm going to tell you a few things about us and about the way we certainly do things. We have a thing over at Google where, oh yeah, I'm sorry, no, she's like, try to put a napkin away. You look ridiculous. Like versus this face? No, are you serious? I mean, that's not the napkin, trust me. We got a thing, and especially I'm going to get all the photos. I was sweaty the whole thing. We have a thing, we have an MO, and I'm sorry, I was talking to the photographer before. He was like, can you just not sit over there? Because it just doesn't look good. So I'm going to be here, especially with this blank screen, which we can use in Photoshop afterwards and just add anything afterwards. It's going to be a fun exercise for everybody. Hey, it's design, right? So we have a thing in the group where when somebody joins the team, we like to ask them to tell us 3 things that made them who they are today. And it's very introspective. You have opportunities of getting to see behind the professional wall, dare I say, right? So, of course, I can hear you all saying, oh, please, Magnea, tell us those 3 things about you. Yes, I will. Of course I will. I'm not just going to leave you hanging. My 3 things. I think the first one, and they're not in that sort of by importance, they just happen to be 3, so I'm just sort of laying them out. Photography, I've been very into photography for whoever's doing something to the AC, you're a saver, thank you, sir. I've been in love with photography for many years, and TLDR, I stopped at Fuji. This is not a sponsored episode, but I do love them tremendously, and I have one in the bag right now, and if I were courageous enough, I would be taking photos of you just so you can feel exactly how it is. So that's one of them. I hear people in the back, get over it. This face again, I know you're like, why am I here? Humor, you might tell, it's a big part of whom I am. I actually grew up going to stand-up comedy with my folks, and it's still a big part of my life. And of course, last but not least, my sort of time scale. My daughter, I happen to have had the opportunity of both being a design manager and a father at the same time, quite literally. A few weeks after she was born, I walked back into the office and they were like, congratulations, here, sign, you've just been promoted. I wasn't sure, still and not am, if they're tied. So if I make another kid, am I still going to be promoted? I'm going to give that a shot. So it's easy for me to tell time. And again, finally, we're back to, but what does this all have to do with designing for wearables? Well, we're going to find out, hopefully. As the holy trinity of every sort of product, successful product, of course, UX is one of the 3 pillars that we have right over at Fitbit at Google. So it's a co-op between product management, UX, and engineering. It's the sort of foundation of all of our products, and it's part of who we are and how we do things. I'm probably going to have this next slide, which I've been very sort of, trying to tell you exactly what's going on in the background without me trying to tell you what's going on in the background. I mentioned cinematography. One of the points that I've had, and the opportunities at one point, I worked in the visual effects department that had all of the reels for one of the local studios over here, one of the local TV stations. And I think it was a very interesting opportunity for me to see exactly what was the pipeline that they had over there, from people which were doing roto to sort of 3D modeling and everything sort of batch together very nicely. It was a very smooth and nice experience to see them sort of, a pipeline of people just working together in unison to create something big. So I know when I joined Fitbit, I was like, I would love for us to have the opportunity to do that. And luckily enough, we actually do. So we actually do that. We have, and of course, it was that point when he realizes the slides haven't saved themselves as they were supposed to, but you're going to have to trust me. We're going to stumble over that slide nextly. It all starts with research, of course, right? So we got UXR. There's plenty of UXR going on in everything that we do. It all follows through with interaction design, visual design, motion design. I'm actually looking for a UX engineer. If any of you actually happens to be a UX engineer, let's talk afterwards. And UX writing, UX project management, right? They're all sort of linked to each other, and that sort of creates our production pipeline as it stands. Of course, that next slide was the timeline where, tell them about your weird Christopher Nolan analogy. If there's one weird thing, at least in creating products, it's the timeline, because I guess as opposed to mobile, where you create something in the next 3 to 6, 9 months, right, to put it out, and you have multiple methods and opportunities of iterating and understanding exactly how it fares, how does it do, how does a product do in the wilderness. We are creating things that don't exist yet. So it takes a minute for you to create those things. When I say a minute, wink, wink, it's more like a year. So you're going to have to create sort of in a very imaginative space of, I hope this is going to be great. Of course, I'm sort of, taking it out in a very abstract manner, but it's very different, right? And about the constraints, we're going to get to the constraints in that next slide. But it's very backwards. My Nolan analogy, I guess, it's very backwards. If you've seen Christopher Nolan movies, the timeline is always sort of weird, and you're like, I don't know what's going on. I'm not saying we don't know what's going on. It's a hectic manner, but it's every sort of backwards. As in, okay, so if this product goes out 2 years from now, let's walk backwards. When do we have to have it on shelf? When do we have to? When does it have to leave the gates, right, of the factory? When does the first sort of firmware need to be written on those sort of pebbles? By when does engineering have to have the first version written? By, right? I think you're kind of getting where I'm going to. I see a nod. Thank you, sir. So you can stop. So it's very different, and it's very backwards, and it's very interesting. I think if there's one thing that I promise you, having worked in this field for several years now, as opposed to mobile, and I'm trying to point fingers, it's a very different opportunity. It's a different methodology. Not intrinsically, it's the same sort of MO, but creating for little devices with little screens, we're going to get to the constraints, has its own sort of technical limitations, and it's weird yet interesting to do those things. And this is the slide which we should have seen earlier on, where I was telling you about the roles and how they sort of blend into each other. From research to interaction design, to visual, to motion, to UXE, to UX writing and UX program management, where if you're wondering, my alignment skills are not that bad, right? So it's not sort of, I'm aware they're a little bit up, mostly because they sort of hover around, right? You're gonna test things out, and you're like, okay, we might need to change the copy, so UX writing inevitably sort of does little changes. Going by that logic, everything should have been up because they're constant iterations all over and over. You try something out, you test it out, you do a sort of a Research Wednesday, which we do. I'm going to have this napkin and all this recording. I realize how bad this is going to look. It's a constant back and forth, right, for us to make sure that whatever we design, the feature set does ultimately help our user and sort of helps deliver the purpose it was intended. Try to capture a few constraints. Just don't scare them off. Where do I start? The little screen size. Again, working with devices, I'm not sure how long you've been doing this, but I remember joining. See, it was initially, I'm looking by the time, I try to be mindful, leave time for them to ask questions, but I don't even know when I started because everything's sort of skewed over. So somebody in the back can just throw a flare and be like, shut up. Circling back to this. Well, I remember, if you guys remember the first time when the iPhone 5 went out, and it had 160 pixels more or something, And of course, Apple said, one more row of apps, which was, it was a big thing, I admit, right? But I remember being in the gaming world at that point, and we just felt like the amount of space we were given, the things we were going to do with all this space. We don't get that over here, right? It's not that, it's 160 pixels, like that's it. What do you mean that's it? That's it, sir. That's we don't got any. This is, look, this is it. It's very interesting for us to bring it down to the essence of, this is it. How do you make the best of these constraints? How do you tackle one-touch target, right? So technically, the screens can take a lot more, but again, we're creating for, you know, very keep it simple, right? Scenario. So even though the screen technically could have multiple inputs, you're like, you think people are going to do that? You're not going to put your, let me start this exercise, but Connie, can I get my glasses? Right? It needs to be instantaneous. It needs to be on the spot. So taking all these things into consideration, of course, things get to be very courageously, you know, done. Memory, resolution, battery life, screen burn-in. How much of the screen do you actually get to light up? Because this will burn through memory. Burn through memory because of the assets. Burn the screen in because of the technology of the actual screen. I could go for days. So ultimately, you know, like if there's something that I want you to sort of leave this room with is, I thought that was pretty interesting. I wasn't really aware of all these things that, you know, they got to do, or they got all these loopholes they got to jump through to create these things, which inherently they seem so simple, right? But I think if we've all been in this field for a minute, everything that seems simple, probably somebody somewhere behind bashed their heads 20,000 times, right, on various walls to make sure that we don't. So I'm not saying there's head bashing over here. That's not I'm trying to. If somebody from legal's watching, that's not what I'm implying. It's time for the pretty visuals, and you know, I can go on with all the things that actually go in at this time. From a wearable point of view, from designing these things, I just thought it would be a great opportunity for me to share a very messy image. Look at this. This is crazy. It's like, what happened? He was supposed to be a designer. And we got something pretty as well. I am very proud to say that the later half of the image, namely, you know, after the first two smartwatches, which are beautiful. If you haven't had the opportunity of working with them, please, I encourage you to do that. But you know, sort of the later half has been created by my team, and I'm very proud to have the opportunity to say that, especially the first two products, which I'm going to literally point to them right now. This one and this one, namely our Charge 5 and our Lux. This has been our bread and butter for the past 2.5 years, and it's been a tremendous trip, and I want to thank everybody in the team for putting up with me, first of all, and for all of you for putting up, you know, with this heat over here, and with myself. Mention about the awards. Yes, we have won several awards for user experience, for industrial design, and it feels like he hasn't covered much. I still have so many questions. That's why we got the Q&A for. Okay, casually just mentioning some of the awards that we won for our devices, and I find it very interesting because you never really think about these things when you're designing, right? You're trying to actually design for the user, and you're trying to focus on the task at hand, and then at one point you get this mail, hey, we won this award. This is not bad, so you know, makes you feel pretty good about yourself. Applying to Google, and again, I'm leaving out all these questions, hopefully for you to ask afterwards. Now, if you're interested in joining us, in joining me, we have our beautiful colleague over here right in the front seat with Roxana, waving at you, for those of you at home. We have a Google booth downstairs, and if you have any questions for Roxana or for myself, please feel free to reach out. Just sort of an overview of what it actually takes for you to get to work with us. Of course, there's a recruiter screen, phone interview, and based on, I guess, how that goes, you're going to end up on the on-site interview. Of course, we have several stages, which we can talk about downstairs. Please hassle me. tackle me, I can tell you all about what these stages actually are, and we can talk about that. There's a hiring committee at the end, right, which will look over all the stages that you will be going through, and if everything goes well, fingers crossed, you will inevitably get an offer, and we might actually start working together. Sort of portfolio tips. I've had the opportunity of looking over, several portfolios over the last few years, and I have a few thoughts, which for PR and legal reasons, I will not indulge into in this discussion, but please, again, talk to me afterward. I'll be more than glad to tell you more than what you can see now on the screen, from left to right. Communicate, distinguish, show passion, which of course, they're all very important things that we do look for and will set you aside from other candidates. So make sure to, and I'm trying to be serious here also as well, make sure to communicate what problems are you solving, right? What was your design process? What was your implication and the product itself? What was the team that you were working with? What was your role? What did you do? Is everything that you're showcasing done by you, right? I for one, I'm not sure if you've stumbled over that opportunity, but you're looking over dozens of screens and you can't keep wondering at one point, is everything that we're looking at designed by the person that's in front of me? Or was it a team effort? And if so, how much of a team effort? How much of everything that you're showcasing, right? Has the logic been done by you? Has the visual done by you? Has everything done by you? So try to put yourselves on sort of the other person's shoes and try to answer as many questions as you find feasibly possible for the person that actually. Yes, thank you. For the person that actually gets to look through, for them to be, oh, look, he even thought about, they even thought about this. I know you're like, this is very vague. Resume tips, right? It's one of those, I had to. Succinctly describe your relevant projects, write an experience on one page. I know we statistically try to go for, well, I've been working for 15 years, I might as well brag. Does it really matter? And I'm not trying to say it doesn't matter. Just stick to the most entertaining and most courageous projects that you had the opportunity of working in, right? Give us your best, and we'll do the same in return. Include a link, of course, to your portfolio, and for us to not have to sort of reach out. You're just teasing. I'm not saying much, right? So let's try to offer the best we can. And I just, of course, I skipped through it because why wouldn't I? Interview preparation. Let's talk about that downstairs. The idea being, there's a lot of hand-holding, right? This is a very, I'm not going to say, what's the word? Don't say complicated. It's a complex process. And we want to make sure that we walk you through it so you're not going to be stumbling over some stages where you're like, well, this is not what I was expecting. That's why we're here. We're going to guide you through the entire thing. And if you're wondering, this sounds pretty interesting, although vague. I haven't heard or understood exactly what you're trying to tell us, but you can always visit careers.google.com to see exactly what sort of opportunities lie ahead for our roles, be it in Bucharest or in other locations. And of course, for now, you can always reach out to both myself, while Tech Sylvania actually goes down, or to Roxana down by the booth. This was the slide where I wasn't sure if Roxana was going to be here, so I got her and Zuzu up on the screen. My recruiting partner is based in London. Emma, she's been doing this for a minute, and this is the moment where you're like, I gotta take a screenshot of this so I can write her an email. Please do. Or if not, again, reach out for us later on. Why Google? I mean, this is sort of, I don't want to say you should know, but, shouldn't you? We have quickly evolving design culture, and I promise you, all of my managers have been at Google for 10 to 15 years, and it's super interesting to have the opportunity to chat with them and get sort of insight as to all of the branches that we sort of work in every day that they've had the opportunity of working in, from search to ads to all these little projects that you're not even aware of. Like, wow, I wasn't even, didn't know we actually do that. To YouTube, And it's to me, I think it feels pretty weird because Google has become, at least for our culture, it's a synonym for Xerox, making a copy, right? Or Adidas for sneakers, or right. So why don't you Google it? Why don't you, right? It becomes such a synonym for searching. And when you actually have the opportunity to work for the people that do all the things that you use every day in a very inconspicuous, or you're not even thinking about it, right, manner, it's very interesting, and I promise you, very worth your time. There's this page, design.google.com, or actually it's design.google. I encourage you to follow it. It's a glimpse into the things that happen at Google in different stages, be it material design or there's a lot of design content over here that's done by fellow colleagues over at Google, and I think you should give it a look, and I'm sure there's something for you to learn from that. And that being said, I'm not sure exactly how bad I did with the timing, but by looking at your faces, it doesn't seem great. It is at that moment when I will be probably passing some sort of microphone along. Sir, thank you for coming over. It was a pleasure. Um, if questions, anything that comes to mind, why are you still talking? Anything, I'll take it. And then we have a microphone in the back. Thank you, sir. Anyone, going once, going twice. You can, not all at once. Thank you. There we go. I just wanted to have a drink of water secretly.
Thank you for the talk. So in the UX process, I have a question on the approach of going firstly from the small screen device to the large screen device and subtracting versus adding information. So starting from the quintessential functionality for the user and adding on versus working the other way around. If you could just talk about the comparison on the two approaches of designing, I hope that was comprehensive.
I'm going to answer it the way I understood it, so I hope you will understand. Thank you, first of all, for the question. We're actually tackling that right now, so I'm trying not to give away too much. But in designing for wearables, right, we have a slew of devices. And if you actually look at our sort of smallest screen size right now, right, our Inspire lineup or our Lux, we're actually sort of thinking about this right now. How can we give the people what they really want? And I'm actually going to come to everybody in the room with a question in a few minutes. But Steve Jobs had this thing, but don't give the people what they, just he thought that he knew what people wanted. If you're going to ask them what they want, and I know somebody in the back is like, that's not what he said. You're completely saying it wrong. The idea was if you're going to ask people what they want, chances are they don't know what they want, right? So they're going to say something crazy, and they're going to be spending a lot of time working on something which in the end isn't going to help anybody. So how can we actually understand what people need as opposed to what they want? So we're trying to do that and scale things, much like the question was, right? How do we tackle that? For us on Trackers, and my sort of MO and motto was, I think we all spend so much time on our phones. I'm really trying to get people not to spend time glancing at another screen, device on their wrist. So how can we make sure that the information that does trickle down on your wrist is essential, is focused, is catered to your health, is catered to your fitness level, is catered to the type of information that would actually help you hopefully be more active, hopefully lead a healthier life, as opposed to, why is this buzzing, right? Nobody needs that. We got enough things. My phone's buzzing right now. Right? So how do we understand exactly what it is? And of course, this is where UXR comes in. This is just me sort of speculating, I think, and that's not what obviously design is about, right? So UXR at sort of grand scale, small scale, and understanding exactly what it is that people understand and what they want, what they truly need on their wrists, and how do we make these things more focused and engaging for our customers. And I will ask you, has that sort of answered your question? I'm getting kind of, but you can move on. Thank you so much, madam. Anybody else? Yes, in the back. Get my good side. There we go.
Yeah, so my question would be, how much does the general Google UI UX is implied here? In the sense that I've seen that there is a pattern, there are things that you do similar across your apps. I'm sure there's more of a technical depth to it, but how does the UI UX also transfer? If that has been a constraint at all, or your own stuff, and then the guys were like, yeah, it doesn't have to fit with all our other products.
So just for me to understand, you're talking about how do our devices sort of integrate in the grand scheme of Google? Okay. You're getting snapped on for you to pass the microphone. I'm sorry, can you please just, for all of you at home.
What? Should I repeat that?
Yes, please, sir.
Okay, so I said, I'm sure they're connected in terms of API and data connectivity and all of that. I was wondering how much of the UI UX is transferable. And when you designed the things, or well, the team designed the things, did you had to get feedback from above? And how did that process go?
Thank you. That was a very long, convoluted question. Like I thought we were friends. What are you doing? So the first of the 20 questions that you asked, sir. First off, everything's a collab, right? If Google stands for something, it most certainly stands for cross-functional collaboration. There isn't much of, I think we should do this, unless we inevitably understand that we should do that. Because, statistically, our UXRs have found that, and because the users in our forum ask for, and because of hardware constraints or, you know, what the market tends to be going towards. And you're like, you're not answering my question. There is a collaboration. I'm trying to find this visual direction towards the man in the back. So there is a collaboration. The only thing where I think we might skew differently is, does that feature need to live on this device? And from a UI perspective, it's one of those, you can't really say too much now, can you? I can tell you we haven't been part of Google for that long, for our products to be that intertwined. And I do believe in the future we might have a more familiar linear design across all of our products, but it's not there yet. Of course, we've only been part of Google for a year and a half now. So expect things to be eventually different. Haven't said anything. Everything changes over time. Have I kind of answered your question? Tackle me afterwards, sir. Anyone else? No pressure. Just go like, do you like latte or cappuccino? Whatever works, anything. Come on, people. I know it's sort of against our culture. Thank you. There you go. Courageous man over here in the middle. For those of you watching at home.
Thanks. I was wondering, since you talked about career, what's
the audio's cutting off? I'm not sure.
It's cutting off. I'll try again.
Okay.
It plays with me.
This is a test.
What's the craziest career change you've seen from people coming into product design? I believe you have a graphic design background. I tried to look you up on LinkedIn, but
Stalker.
Yeah, have you seen like any people coming from completely different backgrounds?
I can tell you that the people on the team right now have a lot of agency background, so they work for a lot of ad agencies, cinematography backgrounds. That's not weird. The strangest thing, we had somebody at one point, and I thought that was courageous. Somebody working construction, right? And he was good. He had very great points. And I was like, you know what? Unfortunately, we're not there yet, but I respect you, sir. Just let's talk in a year or so, and I think we might have an opportunity. So that was quite different. Oh, yeah, I know. I actually know somebody. Yes. Roxana in the front.
We used to have a colleague that studied medicine, and he's an amazing product designer. You would definitely enjoy working with.
Oh, I was actually going to say the same person, so we obviously, it's like we're colleagues or something. Yeah, we had somebody, he went to medical school, and we used to, I always call him doctor. He finished, right? I mean, he never not only went, he actually sort of got a degree in it. So many pictures. Anybody else? And so does that kind of, again, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
medical school, construction,
What was his portfolio like? Like, what did this guy show you guys?
He
to
was
get on
working
team?
for, I don't want to give too much, but he was working for a security company, like web or security. And I think the thing that impressed me the most was one of the stages which we had was an app critique section, and where you would come in and we would like to understand exactly how do you look at this app from multiple lenses, right? From an interaction lens, from a UI lens, from a product lens. What's the competitor? Where does it sit in the market? How does it fare? Why do you think certain things have been done in a manner? What would you change if you had the opportunity, right? So it's usually at that stage when you get to see everybody's sort of pet peeves, right? You've been trying to be a nice person up until you were given the power of God of changing things, and they're like, I would just scrape all, right? And hopefully you're not going to say that. And it was at that moment when this person came in tremendously, so he was like, so I had this app, and I thought about it for a minute, and he had an entire very complicated user flow of how things are, how things should be changed, and why. And I was like, holy hell, this is impressive to say the least, right? And of course, we're not supposed to think about these things. But going by this person's background, you wouldn't probably consider them having the prior knowledge of tackling things in such a manner. I'm not sure when we should be done, so I'm just going to be like, I'm going to be here all day, folks. Any other questions? Okay, let's go backwards, just if it's infinite, people don't. There's like 2 more questions. Oh yeah, can we have another one? Oh, it's like, can I get 2 questions?
So you mentioned at one point when you said about the 15 years experience and the fact that you can brag a lot about all the stuff that you've done and so on and so forth. So there's this approach of, I'll try not to be too ambiguous, okay? Just really
makes
have
one of us. Okay, go for it.
yeah. So, because this domain is really like unfolding. We didn't know like the sub niches that exist now or the specialities have not existed. I don't know, 20, 30 years back, right? And
So I've heard, yeah.
and we can also talk about vertical career development, where you like really specialize in a subfield, or a horizontal one where you grasp several, and then maybe you can also have the team management role and so on. And swapping from one approach to the other, from horizontal to vertical, in several years can get you to the point of saying, okay, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna jump like this, or do this, or do that? And then increasing the amount of soft skills, so to say, may get you to the point of losing the very detailed specialization approach, while the industry is also very much evolving. And here is where my question resides in all of this.
Oh, okay, we're getting to that. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah, I'm trying to like point it, if it would be from your perspective to have like one piece of advice for going through both of these, because as I've seen, that is also like out of your history, career, you've had this kind of things going on and still going on. So if it would be one piece of advice for someone going through all of this in this whole ever-changing domain, thank you.
That was adorable, longest question ever. If somebody timed that, I would love to know exactly how long it took. Thank you. The question was, can you give us one piece of advice that you think might actually... I'm joking. Which is a very good question, thank you. I strongly believe that if there's one thing I've learned over the past 10 years, dare I say, it's different stages, but especially being part of Google, if you don't sell your design, you might as well not do it in the first place. right? So a design that isn't sold and a designer that is not capable of understanding the need of that design and it lacks the capability. I don't want to be too harsh on this proverbial designer, but it lacks the capacity of making people understand why that design is needed and why it solves and why it needs to be done in a particular manner. He might as well just go back to medical school. Wink, wink. Namely, if you don't sell it, it doesn't exist, right? Your designer skills are as loud as your voice as a salesman. And I hope you're trying to understand exactly what I'm going for here, but I'm getting people to be like, is that really? Namely, what I'm trying to go, I'm not trying to if anybody from legal is watching, what I'm going for is, you need to be your number one promoter in this, right? Managers will hopefully have your back and will always have your back and will sort of open doors for you. But when that door opens, you need to know why this design has been done in such a manner, right? And I know for the introverts in you, you're like, well, I'm screwed. But at the same time, half of stand-up is introverted, so, hey, they do it, we can do it. Am I making sense? I'm looking for nods, or like, why would you even say that? Right, namely, if you're a very good designer, but you don't like to voice your designs, try to. I beg you, try to. I think you're going to get much further down the line. And after a certain point in your career, even if it's Google, if it's another big AAA corp, I promise you, your soft skills, right, much like the person in the back mentioned, will inevitably, not necessarily trump, but will take over your hard skills. So I know everything, I'm technical, I understand everything. Just having this problem and conveying my messages and selling and, what's the word that I'm looking for? Evangelizing design and evangelizing user experience and evangelizing the needs of the user, right? We need to lean more into that. Knowing technical stuff isn't the be-all, end-all of things. That's great. That's sort of the first half of the pie, the second half of the pie. And now I'm going to have to make everybody aware of why things need to be done in a certain manner, right? Because, if you don't. Thank you for coming, sir. Again, I have no clue what time it is. I'm just, one last question, and then we can probably just branch off into, I can't say beers, it's too early. Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to ask you, when you start to make a design for a new model, let's say, do you have the hardware and the physical device already made, or is a process that is going step by step and intertwined? I don't know. Because I don't know the shape of the bracelet and there is more than the screen itself that can.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
The answer to that question is yes and no. Namely on, is there another iteration on a product that is already out there and do we already have something on the shelf that we could use to sort of extrapolate? Or is it something that's completely new and radical out there? Charge 4 to charge 5, right, for instance. Essence is the same, but the pebble is sort of different, right? It lacks mechanical buttons, physical buttons. The screen is now color. The way that you interact with it is different. So it has a different density of pixels. It has, right, because of hardware constraints and limitations, right? It has a color screen, but the palette is different. How do you convey that? How do you interact with all of that, right? So sometimes you don't. My inside information, there's somebody from legal. It took us a year for us to get our designs on actual hardware, right? So we had a year of people trying to figure out exactly how can we best prototype. And one thing at one point, Victor and the team, our motion designer, figured out that an iPhone 5 actually has the same PPI as our actual devices. So I think back then we were working in Sketch, and you know, he had that external monitor option in Sketch, and he sort of hooked up an iPhone as an external monitor, and we had a render, a render of the device like from the front, and he was sort of trying to mock exactly this is what it would look like in real size, like real life size, and we were just testing things out. You know, a group of people just staring at it. I think it looks pretty good. And of course, you know, I promise you the things don't match because of, again, panel, density, colors. When the devices inevitably came out, you know, they're like, oh, the fonts are too small. And it's like the little things. I know inside of Google at one point there was the share out where skin tones amongst the people whom developed autofocus for like phones, right? Like all the people in engineering, they were, you know, Caucasian people. And then they were like, you know, like African Americans would be like, I don't know why, it just doesn't focus, right? And they're like, well, we never had colleagues in our group for us to test these things out, so we had to tweak the algorithm. Much like our case was, everybody on the team was under 40, right? Your vision starts skewing differently once you're 40, so when people over 40 started looking at their device, they're like, can't see anything. Despite how many times we try to increase the fonts, and we were technically aware of that. We were like, hey, this is going out for a particular niche. Not like we were in the blind. I have no clue. If I can see it, seems about right, right? So we tried to do all these things, and yet still, inevitably, until you test things out in a mass, you know, sort of option, you will probably not get the end results that you would be expecting. I'm not going to talk about the time because I'm probably going to get flagged. Listen, stop it. All right. One more? Does anybody want to, are you all bored yet? Do you want to talk about something else? Do we want to go to another talk? Do we want to grab a coffee? One last question before we break it off. Thank you, sir. Courageous. Again, extra brownie points.
Talking about evangelizing and showcasing design, I was wondering how do you guys showcase design at Google? Do you record video? Do you do stand-up shows? How do you guys do it?
I think it's all of the above. The last project that I had the team involved in, and I admit it was crunching. I sold my manager an opportunity, and I was like, you know, we were thinking about this, and considering I got people on the team that can do that, wouldn't we try to do something along these lines? They're like, I love it, let's do it. And then I went back to the team, and they were like, are you crazy? Right? I was like, come on, we can do it. And we basically had a video. We shot a video to support all the motion that was on screen. So we had a, what if our devices were to have a ridiculously large screen and our UI were to mimic another operating system, which I won't divulge, but you can probably tell because it's from the same company, wink. We did that, and it took a minute, I gotta say. And you know, I love cinematography. When you get to, oh, we gotta do this. Oh, this is significantly harder than I would have thought. But we basically handed off a video at the end with, you know, again, Victor, that I mentioned before. If you're watching this, Victor, may God give you health. Unfortunately, he had to do all of the work. So he was the animator. So he had to do all of the motion for the UI, and, you know, Alex, our visual designer, did all of the sort of translation and, you know, what if we were to do things in this sort of particular visual way. So we sort of sold oh, you're wondering how this would look? Well, of course, sir. Look at this video, right? And of course, we then had to talk about this, and so it's a mix and match of everything. But teams do actually do this within Google. They put pilot sort of videos together to sell stories.
Was that a narrated video, or was it just you guys presented it in person and then you handed off like just a nice showcase with some musical background or something?
It had music in the background and everything, right? So it was the journey of a user with a potential future device over the course of a day, right? How do you wake up in the morning and are greeted by this device, and sort of how it interacts with you over the course of the day until it reminds you that it's late and you should just, you know, relax, breathe in, and call it a day, right? How do we convey these messages on such a device, right? Is it useful for users? Do people want to see that? Right. So it was a visual story. That's what I was going for. But yeah, there's a lot of that going on. So from concepts to decks, I think decks are the holy grail of Google. So if you're still sort of wrapping your head around, do I got to make a presentation about this? The answer is always yes, please, at least one. And make sure to highlight, your involvement in what you did and why do you think things should be in this manner. And of course, the cross-functional people that you've had the opportunity of working with in creating whatever it is that you're selling over there.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Well, I'm getting people sort of, this has been kind of interesting, so I'm going to, okay. Thank you. You've been adorable. Thank you so much for taking part in, I can't say TED Talk. That's not what it is. Thank you for joining this year at Techsylvania and for being part of our workshop. I've been Magnea, and thank you for your time. Let's hang out. If you want to ask me anything, our live AMAs are welcome. And have a beautiful Techsylvania and a lovely Tuesday, everybody.